Have you ever felt that crushing weight on your chest? That moment when everything you've been working toward feels impossibly distant and the path ahead seems to disappear completely? That feeling when your motivation has abandoned you, your energy is depleted, and a quiet voice inside whispers, maybe it's time to give up. I see you there, and I want you to know something important. That feeling doesn't define you. It's visiting you, not becoming you. Think about it. Why is it that our most meaningful journeys are often interrupted by these overwhelming urges to surrender? These moments when continuing forward feels like pushing against an immovable wall? The truth is, giving up is never really about lack of ability. It's about a temporary disconnect between your present struggle and your deeper purpose. When you feel like giving up, you're not experiencing a failure of character. You're experiencing a failure of perspective. Let me explain. Your brain is hardwired for efficiency. It wants to conserve energy, avoid pain, and seek immediate reward. This biological programming served our ancestors well when survival was day-to-day. But in our modern world, where meaningful achievement requires sustained effort through uncertainty, this same programming becomes our greatest obstacle. Every time you push against your comfort zone, every time you continue, despite not seeing immediate results, you're fighting against millions of years of evolutionary programming. That's not easy, that's extraordinary. And yet, here you are, contemplating surrender. I understand why. The gap between effort and reward has become too wide. The pain of continuing feels more certain than the possibility of success. The story you're telling yourself has shifted from, I can do this, to, why am I even trying? But consider this. What if giving up isn't actually the relief you imagine it to be? When we abandon our meaningful pursuits, we don't just walk away from the struggle, we walk away from growth, from possibility, from the person we're becoming through the struggle. And that creates a different kind of pain, the quiet ache of untapped potential that grows louder with time. So if giving up isn't the answer, what is? First, recognize that feeling like giving up is normal. It's not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's a signal that something needs to change in your approach, not necessarily your goal. The most resilient people aren't those who never feel like quitting. They're those who have developed strategies for moving through these inevitable valleys. Let me share what works. When you feel like giving up, narrow your focus. Our minds catastrophize, envisioning the entire mountain we have to climb. But resilience isn't built by staring at the summit. It's built by focusing on the next step, just the next step. Ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. This isn't about ignoring the bigger picture. It's about recognizing that the bigger picture is created through a mosaic of tiny, manageable action. Next, reconnect with your why. Not the surface level why, but the deeper one. The one that stirs something in your soul. Why did you begin this journey in the first place? What version of yourself were you trying to become? What impact were you hoping to create? When we lose connection with our deeper purpose, even small obstacles can feel insurmountable. But when we're aligned with something meaningful, we can endure almost any how. Think about the times in your life when you've pushed through difficulty, the moments when you wanted to quit but didn't. What carried you through? It wasn't just determination. It was meaning, purpose, connection to something larger than momentary discomfort. Another powerful strategy, change your relationship with failure. We give up because we're afraid that our struggles mean we're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. We interpret difficulty as evidence of our inadequacy. But what if difficulty is actually the pathway, not the obstacle? Every meaningful human achievement has been built on a foundation of failure, adjustment, and persistence. Your struggles aren't the exception to the journey. They are the journey. The most successful people in any field aren't those who avoid failure. They're those who fail actively, extract the lesson, adjust their approach, and continue moving forward. They understand that failure isn't personal. It's information. When you feel like giving up, ask yourself, what is this struggle trying to teach me? What adjustment needs to happen here? Sometimes the adjustment is practical, a change in strategy or technique. Sometimes it's mental, a shift in how you're framing the challenge. And sometimes it's emotional, learning to process the difficult feelings that come with growth. But almost never is giving up the wisdom the struggle is trying to impart. I want you to consider something powerful. Your future self is watching you right now. The person you're becoming is witnessing this moment of choice, this crossroads between continuing and surrendering. What would they want you to know? What wisdom would they share from the other side of this struggle? They'd tell you that the pain is temporary, but the growth is permanent. that the struggle that feels so overwhelming now will become the foundation of your future strength. They'd remind you that every moment of persistence rewires your brain, building neural pathways of resilience that will serve you for the rest of your life. They'd show you how this chapter, this difficult, painful chapter, becomes pivotal in your larger story, not despite the struggle, but because of it. I know these words might feel distant from your current reality. When we're in the valley, the peak seems like a fantasy. So let me offer something more immediate. Give yourself permission to rest. Giving up and taking a restorative pause are fundamentally different actions. One is abandonment. The other is strategic renewal. Sometimes what we interpret as the need to surrender is actually the need to refill our depleted resources, to step back momentarily, gain perspective, and return with renewed clarity. Ask yourself, do I need to quit, or do I simply need to rest? Rest without guilt, rest with intention, rest knowing that recovery is part of any sustainable journey. And while you rest, surround yourself with voices that strengthen rather than weaken your resolve. We underestimate how profoundly our environment shapes our persistence. The people you listen to, the content you consume, the conversations you engage in, all of it is either feeding your determination or eroding it. Choose carefully, consciously. Create an environment that normalizes struggle as part of growth, that celebrates persistence over perfection, that reminds you of who you're becoming. One powerful practice: document your journey. Our minds play tricks on us, especially when we're tired. We forget how far we've come. We dismiss small victories. We lose sight of our progress. Take time to record your growth, not just external achievements, but internal evolution. How have you changed? What have you learned? What strengths have you developed that you didn't have before? This documentation becomes evidence that counteracts the destructive narrative that whispers, "This isn't working, nothing is changing." Something is always changing, even when it's beneath the surface of immediate visibility. Remember, too, that meaning rarely comes from comfort. Throughout human history, our most profound experiences of purpose have come through navigating difficulty, not avoiding it. By staying on the path when it gets difficult, you're not just pursuing external goals. You're engaging in the profound human experience of becoming, of transforming potential into reality through consistent choice, of discovering strengths that only reveal themselves when comfort is left behind. And this is what giving up actually costs us. Not just external achievements, but the internal transformation that comes from staying the course. The person you become through persistence cannot be gained any other way. So when you feel like giving up, and you will again and again, recognize it as a critical moment of choice, a crossroads where your deeper values can override your temporary feeling. In these moments, don't try to generate motivation. Motivation is fleeting, unreliable. Instead, fall back on your system, your non-negotiable action, the promises you've made to yourself that aren't dependent on how you feel. Sometimes courage isn't a feeling, it's a decision to continue despite the feeling. I want you to think of someone you admire, someone whose resilience inspires you. Now realize this truth: they've felt exactly what you're feeling. The difference isn't that they don't experience the urge to give up. The difference is what they do when that urge arrives. They've learned to see it as a signal, not a command, a moment for reflection, not resignation. And with each time they choose to continue, that choice becomes more natural, more integrated into who they are. You can build this same capacity, not by never feeling like giving up, but by developing a more empowered relationship with that feeling when it comes. Start now. In this moment, take a deep breath. Remind yourself why you started. Focus on just one small step and choose, once again, to continue. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. Not because you always feel like it, but because it aligns with who you're becoming. The path forward isn't about eliminating the feeling of wanting to give up. It's about continuing anyway, armed with better strategies, deeper purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that this struggle, the very one that tempts you to surrender, is transforming you in exactly the ways you need. Your future self is counting on you to remember this. When the voice of surrender grows loud, when the path ahead seems impossible, when every fiber of your being wants to abandon the journey, remember that you're standing at the threshold of transformation. And on the other side of that threshold is a version of yourself that you'll never meet if you turn back now. Continue, not despite the difficulty, but because of what that difficulty is creating in you. The strength you're building now will carry you to places you can't yet imagine. And one day, you'll look back on this moment of choice as the turning point when you became the person strong enough to achieve what once seemed impossible. That journey continues now with the next small step. Take it.